You ever walk into a room and suddenly feel a chill? Or, you think you see something move just at the edge of your vision? The whole idea of ghosts, it's everywhere. It's a story we've been telling ourselves pretty much since the beginning of time. So, what is really going on when someone says they saw a ghost? Let's get into it.
Okay, we have to start with this number because honestly, it's wild. A Pew Research Center study found that a whopping 18% of Americans say they have actually seen a ghost. Think about that. That is nearly 1 in 5 people. So this isn't some fringe idea we're talking about. For a lot of people, this is a real personal experience. And that right there is the big question for us today. I mean, if that many people are reporting these kinds of encounters, what's the deal? Are they seeing actual spirits from some other dimension? Or is there something else at play here? We're going to try and figure that out. So, first things first, let's make sure we're all on the same page. When we say ghost, this is what we're talking about. The classic idea from folklore, a spirit, an apparition, a phantom. Basically, the soul of a person or animal that's died but can still somehow show up to the living. That's the baseline we're working with. Now, this whole idea, it is anything but new. I mean, belief in spirits of the dead goes way back to the very earliest human cultures, usually tied up in things like ancestor worship. But the way we actually picture them has changed a lot over the centuries. And it's so fascinating to see how the image of a ghost has shifted. Back in ancient Mesopotamia, ghosts were kind of needy. They needed you to leave out food and drink, otherwise they might cause some trouble. Then the Greeks and Romans, they pictured them as these misty, vapor-like things and gave us some of the first haunted house stories. Fast forward to the Middle Ages, and suddenly their souls stuck in purgatory, asking for prayers so they can finally move on. And then you get to the Victorian era, and people weren't just seeing ghosts, they were actively trying to chat with them at seances. And let's be clear, this is not just a Western thing. Not at all. The belief in spirits is a truly global concept, and it shows up in all these unique and amazing forms in cultures all across the world. For example, in Japan, you have the yurei. These are spirits often tied to our world by some really powerful, unresolved emotion, like a burning desire for revenge. Over in India, a bhoot is the restless soul of someone who died in an unnatural way. Thailand has the super-feared Pitaihong, the powerful spirit of someone who died a sudden, violent death. And then you have Mexico, where the Day of the Dead just flips the whole script. It's not about fear, it's a celebration, a way to connect with the spirits of the people you love. So the core idea is the same, but how it's expressed is just incredibly different everywhere you look. Okay, so we've got thousands of years of belief. We've got countless personal stories. We've got all these cultural traditions. But what happens when we look at the question of ghosts through the lens of modern science? Well, this is where the story takes a really sharp turn. And here's the turn. Science as a way of understanding the world has found zero, and I mean zero, proof that ghosts exist. Despite all the ghost hunting shows and centuries of people looking, there's just no repeatable empirical evidence that spirits are hanging around. So the big question is, why the disconnect? Well, that disconnect really comes down to two completely different ways of understanding things. Folk belief, that's built on personal experience, on stories, on anecdotes. Science, on the other hand, needs evidence you can test, you can repeat, and, this is the important part, that you can potentially prove wrong. It has to be falsifiable. See, you can't really design an experiment to prove that a ghost doesn't exist somewhere. And that's exactly why science calls ghost hunting a pseudoscience. It just doesn't play by the same rules. So if science is saying ghosts aren't real, then what about that 18%? What about all those people who are totally convinced they've seen one? What are they experiencing? Well, this is where it gets really interesting, because science has some pretty fascinating alternative explanations. Okay, so the first set of explanations has to do with the environment itself. The basic idea here is that the world around us, the very room you're in, can sometimes play tricks on our senses and create experiences that feel totally supernatural. So, for instance, take infrasound. This is a sound frequency that's so low you can't consciously hear it, but it can literally vibrate your eyeballs. And that can create this weird feeling of anxiety or sadness or just that creepy sense that someone's watching you. Or think about something as simple as carbon monoxide poisoning. It's a well-known cause of some really vivid hallucinations. Even fluctuating electromagnetic fields, some scientists think, might be able to directly stimulate the parts of our brain that create our perception of reality. Spooky, right? But it's not just about what's in the room. It's also about what's going on inside our own heads. because the human brain is this incredible pattern-matching machine, but sometimes its own programming can lead to some seriously spooky results.
You ever see a face in the clouds or in the patterns on a wooden door? That's a real thing called pareidolia. Your brain is literally hardwired to find faces, and it can easily mistake a random shadow for a person standing in the corner. Then you've got hypnagogic hallucinations. These are super vivid, dreamlike visions that can happen right as you're falling asleep or waking up. And then there's sleep paralysis, which is frankly terrifying. You're awake, you're conscious, but you can't move, and it often comes with this intense feeling that there's a menacing presence right there in the room with you. A lot of ghost sightings can probably be chalked up to these very real, very natural brain states.
So, even with all these logical, scientific explanations, why does the ghost story stick around? Why are we still so completely captivated by the idea of spirits walking among us? Well, the answer might be that ghosts are more than just a belief. They're one of the most powerful stories we tell. Just think about it for a second. In our stories, ghosts are rarely just there to say boo. They're there for a reason. They demand justice, like Hamlet's father. They force characters and us to look at our own lives and our morality, like the ghosts in A Christmas Carol. They're these incredible metaphors for memory and guilt and all the unresolved stuff from our past. And let's be real, we kind of love the thrill. As M.R. James, one of the masters of the genre, put it, a good ghost story just taps into something primal inside us. That feeling of terror and malevolence he's describing, it's a powerful emotional cocktail, and one we absolutely love to experience from the safety of a book or a movie theater.
So this is where we land. Maybe the real question isn't, are ghosts real? Maybe the more interesting question is, if ghosts are a story we tell ourselves, what does that story say about us? It says we care about justice. It says we hope for something after death. It says we're always trying to make sense of our past. In the end, the ghost story might just be one of the most human stories there is.